Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back. It has been long, long overdue for one of these. It has been a while since I last posted, but today I've made the time because tonight I felt inspired by what I watched. And look, tonight I'm here to talk about the Champions League game that I've just seen. And look, I'm going to talk about one game in particular because that's the only game I watched tonight, and that was Real Madrid versus Manchester City at the Santiago Bernabeu. What a ground, what a city, what a group of players on either side. And regardless of what they're currently going through, every single player on that pitch, well, almost every single player on that pitch, bona fide winners and superstars in their own rights. And listen, two legs of brilliant football. And this tie just reminded me of why I love the sport so much. Watching the best players on the grandest of stage deliver scintillating performances. And that's what it is. That's why we all love the Champions League. That's why it matters so much to the players, to the managers, and to the fans. Whether you think your team is gonna win it or whether you're just there to compete, everyone wants to get into the Champions League. That's pretty much what all top sides, if they're not wanting to win the league, they want to play in the Champions League. Because that's how you attract superstars to come your way. That is how you generate revenue. Football is not just a sport, it is also a business, of course, as I'm sure we all know. But look, enough about all of that. Tonight, we got to see Manchester City travel all the way to Madrid, and it was not easy. It was not easy. But before we get into tonight's game, let's just quickly give you a recap of what happened in the previous game. That game I actually enjoyed more than tonight's game, simply because for some parts of the game it was in the hands of both teams. Because that game finished 3-2 with Real Madrid grabbing the winner right at the death with pretty much maybe I don't know the last or second last kick of the ball. And in that game, the jeopardy was just really really high. It was like just skyrocketing because you didn't really know who were going to win, because City, as much as they have been, they've fallen off a cliff this season. They really really have. But Madrid weren't doing the best themselves. You can look at their league standing. At the time they were first in La Liga. Now Barcelona's on top, but they were first in La Liga, and they're there for a reason because they have been winning their games and picking up points where it matters and capitalizing on Atletico and Barcelona's slip ups along the season. But still, going into the Champions League, I think by now we all know that when you play in the Champions League, your league form goes out the window. It's all about what do you have tonight, especially in these knockout ties. What you're doing in the league, how you're doing in your domestic cups, all irrelevant, completely irrelevant. And that is why we all love the sport. Underdogs can go up against the big dogs and produce magic. And that is the magic of the Champions League, right? And this year, just to briefly speak about the Champions League and how it was this season, so they introduced the new 32 team format, which maybe not a lot of fans would have appreciated or liked, but there were surprises that made it worth the watch. And again, it's the Champions League. Of course, we're going to be watching. And but how this group phase went, like, I mean, was it a necessary change? I wonder. Who knows? Because I feel like, at least for the most part, the big teams went through and the smaller teams got dunked out. Which, and that's pretty much what happens in the previous format. The big dogs go to the knockout stages, and the guys who are here to compete go back home. And but they go back home having played in the Champions League and with a little bit more experience in European football, and that's all good and well. But yeah, we did see a few surprises that were definitely worth the watch in this one. For example, one of the teams in question that I'm going to be talking about tonight, is Manchester City. Manchester City pretty much finished 22nd, which is unthinkable, completely unthinkable. A Pep Guardiola team that have won six of the last seven Premier Leagues. They're farming the league pretty much at this point, except for this season. But they've been farming the league. Four Premier Leagues in a row, sandwiched by a treble within that. They were an invincible machine, a complete juggernaut. And in European football, I mean, look, they've only picked up one Champions League in Pep Guardiola's tenure, but they're still a highly, highly competitive team, and they go into pretty much every tournament as one of the favorites, if not the favorite. And this beginning of the season, that was no different. But things change. Oh, and how quickly they changed, man. How quickly they changed. The absence of one man from Manchester City started the domino effect of just a cascade of errors, a cascade of mismanagement, if you would call it that. I'm almost scared to say it because it's Pep Guardiola I'm talking about in terms of management. Like mismanagement, personnel issues, the list goes on. Injuries on top of all of that. It has not been pretty for Manchester City, and they finished 22nd in the Champions League group stage, or the league phase rather. And during that time, they were having a torrid run. It was during a period where they once went with one win in 13 games, which is completely unheard of. And, they managed to get into the playoffs. And in those playoffs, they drew Real Madrid, who, as I mentioned themselves, have not been having the greatest of seasons, especially with the squad they've assembled. They finally got the crown jewel that they've been chasing for the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 seasons. They finally have him. And he did not get off to a good start. People were doubting, was this the right move? Even I had my doubt. I didn't have my doubts in terms of whether he would succeed. I just was wondering when it would come. Is he gonna have an off season and maybe try and come back next season? What's gonna happen? But obviously, for me, I think Mbappe, after obviously the Messi and Ronaldo era, he has been the best player in the world, no doubt. And I did not think any different this season. Even during that tough period, I viewed him as the world's best player going through a very tough period. And sometimes that happens, but it's just that when you're Kylian Mbappe, it shouldn't happen, But he's human, so that sort of thing will happen. And Real Madrid also didn't make automatic qualification vis-a-vis. They didn't make the top eight. And it was looking tough. But we were blessed with a spectacular. A Manchester City and Real Madrid game in a playoff game. Can you believe that? To qualify for the round of 16 in the Champions League. If I said this to you last season, you probably would have punched me in the face and tell me I'm lying to you. But no, reality is crazy. Sometimes it's crazier than fiction, as some might say. And the first leg of this game, like I said, the jeopardy was extremely through the roof, I felt at least, because you couldn't really tell who was going to win. Manchester City have their ways of coming back into games, especially when you have Guardiola on your side and you have the amount of talent that they have. And of course, Real Madrid and their new age Galacticos, they were ready for any challenge, and especially in Europe. Madrid have made it their playground for the last 10 years or so. So, yeah, from minute one, the game was heating up. As soon as the first whistle went, both of them went after it. Real Madrid got off to a great start, created some chances, but it was Manchester City who scored first. Erling Haaland, and I believe that's his first goal against Real Madrid in a Manchester City shirt, because usually he has Rudiger marshalling him around everywhere on the pitch. He cannot breathe when Rudiger's on the pitch. But Rudiger was out. Madrid have also been facing their own woes. Yeah, Erling Haaland grabs that first goal, and you're starting to think to yourself, resurgence from City? Who knows? Who knows? But Madrid hit back, and I remember for a large part of that game, especially towards the later end of the first half, I've never seen a Pep Guardiola team just surrender possession and be like, okay, you can have the ball, we'll sit tight and protect our lead going into the break. And you know what? They did that to good effect to some degree because they didn't concede. So you could say they did it, they put it off. But it was just very, very strange to see City under the cosh that badly. It really, really and truly was insane to see. And in that game, obviously, they had a very aged midfield. In term, they had Bernardo Silva, who's on the wrong side of 30, KDB, who also falls in that category. And, it just wasn't working. It wasn't working at all. Pep Guardiola has made changes to his players and his personnel, but he almost seems like sometimes he's changing around the midfield as opposed to changing the midfield. But again, he went into the winter break and he got the players that he thought he needed to prepare himself for the remainder of the season. And whether it worked or not is still yet to be proven. But within that game, Manchester City lost the lead twice. They went up twice and they lost the lead both times and they ended up losing that game 3-2. I will say Vinicius in that game was Vinicius. He was quite wasteful, I thought, at some stages in the game, especially in that first half. He hit the ball with a great effort, but nonetheless, he missed some of his opportunities. But it's just that directness that he offers you. When Vinicius is having a bad game, you can't fault him for not trying something. That's something you can never do, especially in Europe. When he's under those lights in the Bernabeu or wherever in Europe, in fact, if he's having a bad performance, you will still see a lot of him. He always wants the ball and he always wants to go forward. Look his defender in the eye, his fullback in the eye, and try and do something. He's a difference maker, and that team is full of difference makers, but it just hasn't quite clicked and gelled this season. And in terms of City's side, I thought their best performer was Haaland on the night. Erling Haaland was fantastic. I thought that was brilliant centre forward play from him in what he displayed in that game during last week, and he did well to grab himself a brace, a goal, the first goal, and then he scored the penalty in the second half. And after that, Real Madrid made a comeback via Brahim Diaz, who was once one of their own, and then right at the death, Jude Bellingham, who scored the goal. They took the win back to the Bernabeu and said, "City, come through. We've got something for you. We've got something for you. We've got something for you in Madrid." And come to Madrid, they did, and wow, 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 wow. Listen, if Pep Guardiola thought maybe he was almost out of the woods with that 4-0 win at Man City over the weekend or in the window that he's just had, I've never seen a team spend 200 million in the January window, but that just shows how serious an institution that they are. With everything that's going on, they managed to give Pep Guardiola a new contract. They managed to bolster the squad in areas that they needed in terms of replacing that Julian Alvarez transfer that they lost out to Atletico Madrid. They gained a lot of cash, but obviously they lost a valuable member of the squad and didn't replace him. And they replaced him in the shape of Omar Mamouche. Defensively, they went and got Kusanov from Lens in France, and they got Nico Gonzalez from Porto, which was much, much needed because that midfield needs a complete revamp. Like I said, though they have a lot of players and too many players who are on the wrong side of 30. And you must wonder in your mind as well, like, when Rodri comes back, will he be the same Rodri? Will he be the Ballon d'Or Rodri that we watched in the previous season? And yeah, they came to the Bernabeu and it was not pretty at all. From minute one up until minute 90, City were just sustaining wave after wave after wave after wave of Real Madrid attacks. And one man was at the forefront of it all, Kylian Mbappe, the best player in the world. And I don't think anyone can disagree with me on that one. If you do, let me know in the comment section so I know you're watching. But yes, Kylian Mbappe, that's definitely the best player in the world. And tonight he grabs a hat trick, a much needed hat trick for him. Not that he's in need of goals, but that's just a sort of performance that will just get the fans behind you and get them feeling, believing again. Especially with the fact that they have now lost the league in La Liga and they still have to go and get a run at that. And in this Champions League, where they might have to face particularly difficult Atletico Madrid task or Bayer Leverkusen, which they are both teams that you maybe expect Madrid to beat, Real Madrid to beat, but anything can happen in football, especially with the form in general throughout the whole season that Madrid have been in. So That was a very, very big boost for Kylian Mbappe. And that first goal he took, oh man, Raul Asensio with the pass just over the top. City's defense in sixes and sevens. Mbappe coolly slots it over at Edison 1-0 on the fourth minute. And at that point in time, it was now 4-2, meaning that City had to win by three clear goals, which is a difficult task, especially if you're facing a Carlo Ancelotti team. And not too long after that, before the break, like just before, like 10 minutes before the break, Mbappe does it again. He sits Josko Gvardiol down and says, "Take a seat, relax, take a seat. You've got a broken ankle. I just broke it. Sit down and watch me score this goal." And then he looked at him and said, "Get a load of this guy." Sliding all over the place. And man, what a calm finish that was. And you get the sense that Kylian Mbappe truly is back. Especially, I mean, like scoring a hat trick like that in that manner at the stage that he did it at, you have to get the thoughts in your mind and the hope in your mind that he's officially back. But for that second goal, there's one player I actually want to highlight in particular, because if you watch the replay of the goal, especially like from the very beginning of the attack, Rodrigo collects that ball on the center from close to the halfway line. He gets it. He makes an easy pass. He receives it. He holds it up well. He passes it again, and he makes movement. Vinicius gets the ball back to Rodrigo. Rodrigo does very, very well in that situation with the defender in front of him, coming to get the ball, and he just passes it to Mbappe. Mbappe sits Guardiola down, and he slots it home. And Rodrigo, I like what Thierry Henry said during the halftime break. He said Rodrigo is an unsung hero because he balances the team very, very well. And I feel like his contribution and that assist to the goal, in fact, the whole build up from the first time he gets involved, he's really an unsung hero because we'll all talk about Bellingham, we'll talk about Vinny, we'll talk about Kylian Mbappe, the man up front. But Rodrigo, what a superstar. I fully believe and firmly believe that he is an absolute superstar. And he may not get the love that he needs and deserves from Real Madrid or maybe football fans in general. But for me, I absolutely love the man. And he's pure talent. His contributions to that team are pretty much immeasurable because whenever he comes on, they do indeed look more balanced. He will do the dirty work. He can switch from side to side. He can even make the runs that Mbappe would need to be making up front if Mbappe's obviously moved to the left a little bit. So yeah, he's the man who just brings everything together within that attack sometimes. And then he's a difference maker. Again, the team is full of difference makers, and tonight I felt that he made a massive difference. Now, for City, they didn't have Haaland up front in this game. I'm not entirely sure as to why that is. Maybe slight injury, or maybe Pep wanted to give him a rest. But I would firmly like to believe that maybe he had some sort of illness or an injury because he didn't play the entire game. And I don't believe that Pep would not play his top level striker just for the fun of it, or maybe because he gave up early in the game. I don't think he did that, but yeah, he did not come on, so I'm not sure why. I'll probably find out as soon as I'm done shooting this video. And yeah, look, Manchester City were wide open tonight. The goals that Mbappe scored, like, you just have to look at that City back line and where everyone is. It looks like everyone is so lost. No one knows what's going on. No one sees the runs that the other players are making. So a player from Real Madrid side who has the ball can find someone with ease who can carve through and put the ball in the back of the net. And the scoreline today was actually so kind to City. 3-0. They should be happy with that, especially after that performance. They really should be happy with that. 3-0 only. It should have been more. And I reckon it could have been if Madrid obviously took some of the chances that they did create, because they created plentitude of those. They created a plethora, if you will, of chances. And they took three of them, all by the same man. And I will say his name again, Kylian Mbappe. Wow, man. What a special player. What a special, special player. And, City as well have had their injury woes, and from the minute the game started, from conceding on the fourth minute to then a few minutes later losing John Stones, who is a great defender. He really is. He's a top level defender, but he's just not available enough. His fitness is absolutely spooky. I actually heard one of the commentators say that since 2018, yeah, you heard that right. It's not 2025. Since 2018, John Stones has not played more than six consecutive games for Manchester City. And that's insanely worrying. So they definitely will need to address that at some point. And, in the previous game, they lost a Kanji, they lost Grealish in the same game. And now they lost John Stones, and then they went and conceded two goals in one half. And yeah, it's just not looking good for City at all. It seems like there's no end in sight. For them, it looks like the season cannot come to an end fast enough. 60 goals conceded, and we are just over halfway in February. I don't think they've conceded more than 60 goals throughout an entire season. And especially if you take into account the amount of games that City do play, because in every competition they'll always make it far. So they play an incredible amount of games. And to concede 60 at this point of the season, and I think their league position, I wouldn't want to say it flatters them, but I think in some times they have in fact taken advantage of the fact that the teams around them did not gap City enough. For example, I as a Chelsea fan, I fully believe that when we face City, we should have sacrificed them for real. We really should have, but we did not. In fact, we were so poor. We made them look like they were back, but in fact they were not, because they had us by the scruff of the neck. From minute 20, I would say, up until minute 90, we didn't look like we were going to win the game ever, even though we scored the first goal. And I'm still very, very bitter about the result, especially the results that came after that City have played in. And then you look at the fact that we've fallen off even more. But yeah, not to make this video about Chelsea, I will make a video about Chelsea and discuss all of my heartbreak and all of our woes that we're currently facing at the moment. But this game is a shout out to Real Madrid and Carlo Ancelotti. And of course, Kylian Mbappe. Yes, that's right. I'm gonna name drop him in this video like crazy because that was an inspirational performance. That was simply sensational, man. And I won't get tired of saying it, at least for the next, I don't know, 20 minutes. And so City have a lot to think about. Pep Guardiola has a lot to think about. I don't know. It looks like he's out of ideas at this point in time. He does not know when the next one is coming from, and the games are just gonna get increasingly more difficult. They have Liverpool at the weekend, a game that I don't see them winning, even though Liverpool dropped points tonight. I didn't watch that game, but obviously I saw the result 2-2 against Aston Villa. But I don't see City winning that. Even though they're playing at the Etihad, I think the best they can do is maybe a draw, but I don't think they have enough confidence. Um, I guess the squad isn't gelled enough to be able to compete with a side that has been so dominant in Europe and in their domestic league as well. So very, very tough ask for Man City over the weekend. And yes, after tonight's game, I don't know what's next for City. It looks like it can get a whole lot worse. It looks like it can get terribly worse. And there's one thing I actually do want to highlight with regards to how Pep Guardiola set his team up tonight. Look, I'm not sure what's going on with their right back situation at the moment, but look, Kusanov, he might have nightmares tonight with the game that he's just had against Vinicius. But I don't blame Kusanov for that performance. It's Vinicius. And two, Kusanov is a centre back. I don't think anyone has ever seen him play right back. And of all games to play him in, you choose to match him up with Vinicius Jr., one of the most relentless wingers you could ever want to come across. Because Vinny in that first half was just trying to take him to shreds. Him and Mbappe were taking turns being like, okay, cool. Can you break this man's ankles? Like, no, I can. Can I don't think you can. I think I can. Let me show you how you break an Uzbekistani's ankle. And Yeah, it was not an easy game for the young man. And he's 18. He is coming to a team that is struggling at the moment. And you've got to question how that's going to do for his mentality going forward, especially the season is still long. There's still quite a lot of games to go. And I often wonder now if he'll be able to play at a very high level within this very much dysfunctional and very much inconsistent team. But that's, again, yet to be proven. He could make a great turnaround. And look, that City formation tonight did not work at all. Not having Holland, I think, really impacted them negatively. Very negatively in a sense because they had Savinho and Omar Mamouche sort of playing up front together and trying to occupy that back four with Rudiger back. And Rudiger, after being out for a couple of weeks, he came back and he probably had one of the easiest shifts he will ever have this season. I feel like he's having a tougher run against teams in La Liga than he did tonight against Manchester City. And he looked comfortable. He got the job done, almost secured a clean sheet along with Courtois, who was very not busy tonight. There was just nothing in the City attack at all. They were just under the cosh from minute one up until minute 90. And that consolation goal was like, wow, brilliant free kick by Omar Mamouche. He crashed the ball. Courtois stood no chance with that one, but I'm sure he'll be annoyed to have conceded such, an easy tap in like that. And it's crazy that Courtois tonight, I think I only saw him make two saves. Uh, Two saves. One of the shots was straight at him, and the other shot was like just from a very narrow angle, and he just sprawled. The ball bounced off of him, and it went out for a corner. But yeah, a very easy shift for Courtois. I thought that Raul Asensio, he had another fantastic game. I thought, and he's proving himself to be a very useful member of the squad during the injury crisis that they've been having. He's a very smart player, and Real Madrid don't usually produce talent out of their academy that make it into their first team at least. But Raul Asensio has been a revelation for them in the midst of everything that has been going on with Real this season. And another player that I would just want to shout out before I end the video, I want to shout out a man called Federico Valverde. Fede Valverde, man. Oh, what a player. What a player, man. Oh, my goodness. I can't believe Real Madrid get to have the luxury of having a player such as him. If you watched him for the first time tonight, or at least just, you're not a football fan, maybe you're trying to get into football and this was your first game watching Real Madrid, you would think that he's a right back through and through. That's what you would honestly think. That's the vibe he gave tonight. Wearing the captain's armband, he put in a leader's performance, just like he's been doing the entirety of the season. Ever present, ever reliable, and wow, man, there's just the brain on that man. He's an intelligent player. He's effective. He does his job wherever he needs to be. You could play him on the right wing, he'll give you a 7 out of 10 to 8 out of 10. Play him in midfield, he'll give you an 8 out of 10 and above. Now at right back, like he's just such a multifunctional player. I actually try to think of players who are like him in that regard of being able to just be utilized anywhere on the pitch and give you great performances. So you know what, man? Shout out to Federico Valverde. If it wasn't for Mbappe scoring a hat trick, for me, he'd probably be my man of the match. Honestly, top tier performance. Like even when Madrid were 3-0 up and the game was pretty much done and dusted, they were 6-2 up on aggregate. City had no chance of scoring what? They would have needed to score 5 goals without reply in 20 to 30 minutes. But Fede Valverde, he was still running himself to the ground for the team, winning his ground jewels. Whenever the winger's coming down on his flank, he just shuts that shit down instantly. Oh man, what a player. If every team in the world had a player like Fede Valverde, football would be such an entertaining sport. And he would improve every single team under the sun. I firmly believe that. He would absolutely improve every single team Whether it's Liverpool this season, who are absolutely flying, he could get into anywhere in that team and improve them still, even better. He could get into an Inter Milan side that I really, really love watching, who are so balanced. I probably think they're probably one of the most balanced teams in Europe over the last, since 2024, and from what we've seen now. The balance in the team is absolutely incredible. But Fede Valverde, if he were to go to Inter Milan, he could easily display someone in there and improve them massively as well. So what a player. And yeah, that's, I guess that's it for my Federico Valverde soliloquy, if you will. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't done it yet, click that subscribe button. I promise more content is coming. I am desperately trying to find the time because I am coming to love this sort of thing. Like, I got an incredible amount of support in my first two videos, and got them subscribers going on. And so thank you to everyone who has been commenting, liking, subscribing. More content is on the way. There's a whole lot of football going on, a whole lot. So I'm definitely on my part trying to find the time to be able to fit it into my schedule. And because I really, really am enjoying what I'm doing here, talking about football. Because as if you watch my first video, you will know that there's nothing I love more than yapping about football. I could do this all day, honestly. Like, if you put me in front of someone who is like minded, we could talk about football until the cows come home and I wouldn't get tired. In fact, I would want to do it all over again because there's just so much football going on. There's so much football that has happened. There's so much football that will happen. And there's just so much to talk about, you know? But it's all about finding the time to be able to, stand in front of a camera, record, edit, and post on YouTube. But my commitment is that I will be doing that. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I'll check you on the flip side.